Supportables, week 8 brought with our second half. We are starting the back 9 now of our fantasy regular season. A lot of points on the board. More teams than not were at or above predicted, and we did have a few high flyers, mainly in a few key positions. One in particular that was not a high-scoring position in general, but it certainly was this week, and on a national holiday nonetheless. Either way, let's get right to it with our NFL highlights, and then get right to our scores. The bridge between week 8 and week 9 is riddled with holidays. Week 8 on the Sunday was actually National Tight End Day for all those who celebrate. And don't just think it's a way for NFL to sell t-shirts, although it probably is, because this particular year, unless I'm mistaken, tight ends had more receptions on one day than any other day in NFL history. And I'm sure that will come up when the next segment when I go through our scores, because a lot of people definitely had some of those tight ends in their starting roster, and even a few of us might have had them on their bench. But I'm actually recording this on Halloween, which is why it's a little bit delayed. Not delayed as it was last week when I actually woke up early in the morning on my week off to do it, but, normal delayed, where this is going to get probably right before I go to bed. So every week I say this, I'm going to try and be a little shorter. Let's see if I can actually do it this time. I have an outside shot because there's only one real story or real thing I wanted to kind of talk about, partially due to our 1 versus 2 draft matchup with Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. And if you did watch the game was all right, kind of a dud at times, and definitely great if you had a field goal kicker in it. But obviously, if you watch the last minute or even the last 30 seconds, seeing 2 touchdowns back to back at that style, great, because it showed the kind of different offenses, the different strengths of the quarterbacks, and then was just super cool when you see a Hail Mary flukily actually work out. But that is kind of the trend of this year, where Caleb Williams is doing all right given what he has, but he is still a pretty young quarterback. I mean, not just the first year part, but the actual age part. But then there's Jaden Daniels, who's getting way more hype, actually kind of being a little bit more successful in terms of a total complete quarterback package, but that's partially to do with his fantasy value. But both are actually on pretty successful teams when they weren't supposed to be. Now, it also gave us a lot of funny memes. If you watch Tyreek Stevenson actually mocking the crowd and kind of taunting them before he went and tipped it back to the actual receiver himself. Now, that's something I personally as a coach will probably be using just for following the ball, not paying attention to where you should be, not sticking to assignments, and then just maybe don't taunt. But all that stuff aside, that was super exciting. Gave us a bunch of the memes of the reactions. Obviously, Jaden Daniels was thrilled, as was Washington. Caleb Williams starts screaming, apparently at himself, but also at others. So great stories all around. But digging back to a point I made a few weeks ago, it does also highlight just the different strategies teams have right now with their young quarterbacks. This is probably perfectly highlighted by the announcement that Anthony Richardson was going to get benched for Joe Flacco. Now, some people panicked and say now they're selling the farm so quick with this young rookie quarterback. And remember, he is not just young. He is the youngest starting quarterback as far as I know. But also, he's only played or started 13 collegiate games, and then this is his 10th NFL game. So they knew he was even young on that comparison. But they did blow a top 4, top 5 pick. It was top 4, I think, last year. So they are kind of invested, and that is something I talked about before. Do we have these older quarterbacks coming in that know more complex systems, but they're a bit older? Or do we get the young quarterbacks who need extremely simple systems, but maybe have that athleticism? Now, with Richardson, it's a bit weird because he got hurt so much. They're not really running him as much as they used to, which was kind of the point with him because he sure really can't throw right now. But we see this as compared to Jordan Love, who sat as a backup forever. But that's actually less kind of important to me. It is more the financial decision. And sometimes it's not really backwards. This year, if you had a first-year quarterback, it's probably working out pretty well for you. Even Bo Nix, technically, while I don't think anyone would argue he's lighting the league on fire, even in fantasy value, he was kind of a better pick so far than Mahomes. Now, he's not a better quarterback then, and it's very matchup based. Let's be honest, Denver's been very fortunate about who they've been playing, so that is destined to change. But a lot of these guys are stepping in and being successful right now with the base systems. Now we'll see with the more complicated defenses start hitting them, how they kind of fare. But I also think it matches when I say economic market. Obviously, anytime you have Dallas plays San Francisco. There's a reason San Francisco is pushing it so much to try and get people back and not really care and still push to move forward. A team with their kind of injuries you think might be on the selling end of things or starting to calm it down, but they kind of can't, right? The stat comes up every year that former Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy makes in an entire season what Dax Prescott makes in a quarter. It's not quite, but it's only under $100,000 off, which is pretty exceptional. So if you think about trying to sign one of these major guys, it actually has a massive shift on your whole organizational structure. So sure, you can spend all this money on your quarterback or a big running back, or you can go cheap, go young, go new on the guaranteed rookie contracts, and maybe actually build up your defense a little bit and actually be a competitive team. It's hard to say. I mean, realistically, us on the fantasy end, not all of us in these pools are actual football fans, so we kind of just want high points and high value, but realistically, I don't think the NFL cares about actually making a great product. I mean, they mainly pitch to a lot of Americans who will still support something, even if it doesn't really represent them or they actually enjoy it anymore, which I don't think on this particular week I have to elaborate too much more on. Anyway, we're going to jump to the scores. Let's see how I did in terms of timing, but more importantly, let's see how we all did in week 8. I'm aware that not everyone time zone-wise can follow all of the matchups, so I can tell you that there was a time that while this looks like a 30-point matchup, it was about to go drastically in the other direction. In fact, there was a few points in the middle there where Jackie was actually predicted to win by a little bit, and then a few acts of God came and hit where it made Lara and Juliet go right back on top to their winning ways. Most specifically, Swift was having a horrible game until suddenly he busted out for a massive touchdown run, which essentially at that time more than doubled his score. And as you can see on his bid here, if it's a 40 plus, he goes under. There's a lot of intangibles there that added to extreme extra points. The other odd occurrence, if you were watching the New Orleans game, which I don't know why you would have, but if you did and you saw the quarterback change, they went to a very young quarterback. And what tends to happen in these situations is either the quarterback just hands the ball off and manages, or by the way of managing, maybe it's not always handing off, but essentially all plays just go to one receiver. And that is effectively what happened. Olave was not having a good day. And then suddenly he was just force-fed the ball enough that got his numbers up. So two pretty extreme examples, because if you look at it, yes, Kittle went off. He was the tight end 3 on the week, and their kicker was technically our kicker 5, although it was our kicker 1 because no one started the top 4. But if you look at it, other than that, it's just a lot of solid performances. Again, their running backs have been consistent for most of the year. Quarterbacks, I mean, Lamar overachieved and Goff was right on, but that was just enough because Jackie had a similar situation where, I mean, her best overachieving player was actually on her bench in terms of Tracy, so great pickup there, but obviously not getting in the game. That's not going to help you out too much, but you did manage to pick up the top scoring defense, so great decision, Jackie, to go for Detroit there. They had a great game for you. But other than that, you just had people who were around their predicteds but not really dominating. You were just shy of 1 or 2 people going off, and then you could have taken them down. On the plus side, you still scored a fair bit, so as you can see, you didn't drop too far here. But it really does stand to go. Is Juliet and Lara, are the Malakovs going all the way to the top? Are they going to lose it all? They've made it all the way to week 8, so that in itself is a feat. Congratulations. Keeping it in the family, Paul and company was just behind them points-wise for a number 2 scoring on the week, and obviously they're cementing their run here. They're up to 500, and obviously, as we can see, top 4. Unfortunately for Team Kickass, they've had kind of an inconsistent run, but 146 was good enough to beat most teams here. They actually had the 5th highest score, but they take the L. If we look at their score, Cousins is obviously huge and been a massive pickup. He was the quarterback 2. Kelsey was the tight end 4, and then just some solid performances from their running backs. Obviously, Cooper being probably their biggest disappointment. And if we look on the bench, there was a few points to be had here, but I don't know if anything that would have completely turned the tide. And surprisingly enough, on National Tight End Day, their second tight end, I should say, didn't go off, and Brock has actually been much more consistent. So the 2 tight end strategy did not work. For the 3-headed beast, Jacobs was massive with the RB2 performance on the week. They also had our wide receiver 4, our quarterback 1, our tight end 1, and our 3rd ranked defense. So How they didn't end up with almost 200 with all those numbers is beyond me, but let's put most of it on their actual running backs who massively underperformed. So you kind of needed those performances to climb over the heap, but 160 is definitely going to do it. Like I said, you guys are on a bit of a run now, so let's see how that keeps going. Team Kickass, the dream of the double down, the back-to-back championships is not over yet, but you're certainly going to have to start to make a move soon. Speaking of two teams who came out and scored high, but only one could take the W, Randy gets to our top three with her 150 plus, but only 5.5 points back is Kelsey. Unfortunately, that doesn't get her the win. For Randy's side, I mean, how she did it, solid quarterback play in general. I mean, one of the two Robinsons went off. The other one, at least it wasn't too far under your performance. You did have the tight end too in Auden. That's been a massive pickup for you. But other than that, none of our high flyers or people that you had kind of going. And your bench, you made most of the right decisions. But again, plus 150. More than enough to get it done. Kelsey, on your side, you certainly had some people scoring points. As I mentioned, your defense was the defense 2 on the week, and you did have Gibbs, who was a top 5. He was our 5th running back of the week. Your wide receivers certainly kind of let you down. Your kicker wasn't doing what it maybe has in the past. And weirdly enough, you missed a good opportunity. Pakanakua and Laporta both had better than average performances, and they might have been enough to tip the scale on you. Fortunately, though, when you score a lot of points, even when you take the loss, the tiebreakers work out in your favor. So let's not hit the panic button too soon here, Kelsey. You just need to go on a bit of a run. But Randy, phenomenal start. You're keeping it going. You're more wins than losses, which is better than most of us can say. And as I said, top 3. When it rains, it pours, Pamela. And even though you just were over your predicted, it was not enough for 4th and Conquer here. Another team with the 5 in the win column, and right now sitting in our top 2, our second best team. Now, how this all went down, Pamela, it was all not for naught here. We did have our 5th ranked wide receiver. You also had a quarterback in Purdy who cracked the top 5. He was the 4th overall, but just too many disappointments. The Jets defense certainly didn't help you out. Your running backs actually underperformed, and they've been fairly steady for you so far this year. And Robinson obviously not doing a whole lot. Your bench as well, you're still kind of riddled with a bit of injuries and just a bit of underperformance. Now, Johnson going to Baltimore will be super interesting. We'll see how that kind of pans out, but that's more of a future you situation. I'm already looking at the bench over here, so I'm just going to highlight Tillman, who was surprisingly in Cleveland's offense when they took a quarterback who likes to throw the ball occasionally. He was a top 5 wide receiver, number 3 actually overall. But what really pushed them forward this week, they had CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver 1, Cook, running back 1. You get 2 number 1s in 2 big key positions, and you don't have too many stinkers. Yes, you were not celebrating National Tight End Day, and your flex wasn't fantastic. Everything else was good enough to kind of get you through, and your kicker obviously putting up 14, nothing to sneeze at there. So not your best week, but 144 is certainly going to put you in contention, and who cares? You got 5 wins. On the flip side of the luck coin here, every once in a while you can barely beat anyone, but you still squeak out a win. That was me. I was coming out of the gates okay. Then I had a big quarterback injury. I had a wide receiver injury, and then things started to go south. Lucky for me, I was playing something or someone who things were going even worse. And in fact, I think, Raph, between the two of us, we can look down at our bench. This is how we put it all. Your highest scoring running back was actually on the bench, and my only person who cracked the top 5, the RB4 in the week, was on my bench, and my quarterback got benched. So let's be real. Let's be honest. No one's super proud of this performance, but I at least squeaked one out. We are technically tied. I got you a little bit in the points overall, but I think both of us need to dust ourselves off and look to next week. And unfortunately, if you haven't noticed, we did actually have the makings of a pretty tight Monday nighter. I had an 18.36 lead and you had Neighbors, but even if you beat me, since I've already been kind of declared a dead team, you needed about 30 to 35 points to avoid your fate on this one. Unfortunately, you didn't get it, so it is true. For week 8, you owe the round. As I mentioned, the coveted 500 spot gets you anywhere from 4th to 7th, so some people on the outside in. And then certainly we've got some people here, like I said, that aren't quite out yet but are going to want to make a few more runs. And especially if you have the higher points, remember, you just need to tie and then you pop all the way up. So that reminds the rest of us that are in the playoffs right now, we got to keep winning. And those who are on the outside, you're not far from it. We still have our undefeated streak on the go. Will Jules and Lara continue? Let's take a look at who might knock them off. And actually, if you've looked at this is pretty hilarious. It's almost like Yahoo knows it might just be the batter of the households, or I'll say couples, because maybe some couples here don't always live in the same household. Now, Randy and Pamela, that does kind of leave you out. If you guys would like to bunk up for the weekend and just kind of share a common space and hang out a lot, maybe that's in play, because everyone else, it looks like you're playing your significant others. So here's hoping that sports and fantasy sports can help strengthen these bonds and not wither them away. Although if people do need to take couples weekends apart, I fully understand. I can't keep saying it week after week, but we know if you're on a run, stay on the run. If you're not, you better start it sooner than later, because in that now or never, it's getting closer and closer to never for some of us on the bottom there. It's a fairly regular week, except for two kind of hiccups. Well, not hiccups. We're back to bye weeks. Those are fairly normal. That's Pittsburgh and San Francisco, so you should be paying attention there. The Thursday nighter, as always, is coming at you, but I think the other wrinkle you should be paying attention to, especially those of us overseas, daylight savings, I believe, is going to hit this week. Check me if I'm wrong. So games might be pushed back depending on when your daylight savings might be happening, or in my case, will not be happening. So pay attention to timing, check your rosters, and as always, best of luck. Although I do need to remind, now that we're back after a couple weeks off of dead weeks, unfortunately, Norcan, and I'm assuming this is Raf because you are in Switzerland, so unless you get money wired to you from your partner, looks like you're on the hook for a round. Sorry, pal.